We've got a new segment here. I get to go into some of the articles that are of really important interest and things that I would like to share with you. If you haven't yet, this is a great time to become a member, because that's how you're going to get access to a lot of the exclusive content that a lot of my colleagues get to write. Like Matt, Tara, and Dan, they're reviewing constantly all sorts of awesome stuff, and one of them just happens to be right behind me. If you don't know, there's a new tarmac out. It's the SL8. Matt got to write the review for it and write it before the embargo lift date, so I'm actually going to be referencing some of the stuff that he talked about in the review, but also I've got my own opinions, because this is the first time I've ever ridden a bike that's $14,000 or an S-Works, or that I've ridden Dura-Ace for those that don't know. Yeah, I've never ridden a bike of this caliber before, and it completely shattered my expectations of what other bikes should be and should do, and I might be ruined after this, but that's beside the point. Anywho, it's really important that you go ahead and read Matt's review. It's an awesome read. One of the things that he really goes into is this an aero bike for everybody? Because like I had mentioned earlier, this bike was made for World Tour pros. People like Soudal Quickstep, Bora Hansgrohe. These are teams that operate on very, very tight margins, and weight is one of the places where a lot of teams will start to cut. Obviously there's the UCI rule for the weight limit, but because Specialized is who they are, they're able to employ some pretty crafty tricks up their sleeve, right? The really important thing to notice on this SL8 that Matt pointed out, I think that everyone pointed out, it's bulging out if you can't tell. It's right here in the head tube. This head tube is bulging out like a beluga's front end, and there's a funny little reference for those that know. But yeah, there are some really important things that make this SL8 what it is. And it's this awesome intersection between the Athos, the Venge, and previous tarmac models, right? We were fortunate enough that within the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, just right around the pandemic, Specialized released the Athos, their featherweight fighter, right? Like, there was no holds against the UCI, there was no weight limits when making that bike. It was a really cool thing. And part of the thing that made it cool was that they learned a lot about how to lay carbon up in a really structural way, in a structurally resilient way that still made it really lightweight. Hence, and cue into all of that knowledge being balled up into the tarmac. So with this, right, as you can see, the tarmac is keeping some of its historical design aesthetics while pulling in stuff from the Venge and the Athos. If you can imagine with me, we're gonna draw a line down the center or a line diagonally, whichever way you wanna look at it. Let's take a look at this front end piece for a second here. This front end has very reminiscent cues to Avenge, you know, having these aero optimized design features, which will capture the wind, making it transfer across the bike into clean air. For those of you that don't know, there is a difference between clean and dirty air. Any air that comes off of the leading edge that then doesn't attach to the bike itself is considered dirty. So with that, right, the front end's been optimized for aerodynamic advantages. You've got this really, really thin front end from the handlebar as well. These are gonna add up to watt savings that supposedly Specialized said is in the 16-second range. While that may not seem like a lot, I can definitely attest to dropping 2 minutes on a certain segment in a certain area. It was pretty drastic for me, right? But as you kind of move back in towards the bike, we've somehow still able to preserve a rounded down tube. While some of the sides are a little truncated to provide some aerodynamic advantages, what they want is to try to be able to keep, or rather produce, a really well-performing and efficient bike. And then once you get to the back end, that's kind of where the Athos's design aesthetics, or rather cues, kind of come into play. These are really thin seat and chainstays, guys. It doesn't necessarily impact how snappy the bike is, but rather adds to this overall really impressive ride. So important things to note about the frame, or rather the platform, the tarmac. It's gonna come in everything from an entry-level price point all the way to their S-Works range. The one that I've been able to review is their S-Works range, which is their 12R carbon. They do make a 10R carbon, and I think that they may be making this in a aluminum version, which they have in the past as well. You should be able to get this bike spec'd with everything from electronic 105 and now that mechanical's out all the way through Dura-Ace. And if you like SRAM or prefer it, I'm pretty sure that there's a build for that option too as well on the Specialized build site. Overall, I think that Matt did enjoy the bike. It was something that he didn't have really too much negative to say about it. I really didn't have too much negative to say about it because, I mean, first look at it. Just look at it, it's beautiful. Secondly, it was my first time riding a bike like this. I'd never ridden a bike with integrated components, never ridden a bike with Dura-Ace before, and certainly never rode a bike of World Tour status. Is this bike for you? Maybe. Are you a full-time athlete competing on the bike? Then yeah, sure, this is gonna be the right tool for the job so long as you're not sponsor dependent. If you are like the rest of us who are mere mortals, you know, something else from their 10R carbon or even something with a different group set and shallower wheels would be just as fine for you. The most important thing is that if you are in need of a bike, this might be the one for you if you're primarily find yourself road racing.